Now, ladies and gentlemen, 2 weeks ago today, Valve introduced the Fire Sale update to Counter-Strike 2, bringing dozens of new features and additions such as Vertigo, a change to the economy, renting skins, and of course the normal bug fixes. With enough time now passing, the changes to Vertigo have had some time in the burner, that being for players in both the casual and pro scene to explain their new love or continuous hate for the map. The exact same thing for Vertigo and the new features this update brought also falls into the category of renting skins as well. Just enough time has passed for players to give their real thoughts of how they feel of the feature of renting skins. With skins the last few weeks drastically bumping up and down in price, the kilowatt case has skyrocketed to 3 times its original value, the market has now begun paving its new way forward. Today's video, there's much to discuss. We'll review this most recent content update to Counter-Strike 2, with all the new features and additions the Fire Sale update brought to the table, as well as its fair share of problems. We'll discuss all that, as well as what Valve will be releasing soon. Now, today's video sponsor is SkinsMonkey. SkinsMonkey is a buying, but most notably trading marketplace, that being for your CS2 items. You can trade off your old skins for something new. All you do is log in with Steam, you start a trade, and any cash remaining goes to your available balance on the site. When it comes to trading an item you don't have enough balance for on the site, SkinsMonkey has a large variety of deposit options. By using my code MANDO, you can get up to a free $5, and by depositing alongside using my code, you get an additional 35% of a deposit bonus. With SkinsMonkey's large variety of skins, they also offer daily, weekly, and monthly giveaways. If interested, the link will be in the top of the description down below. Firstly, for today's video is the blog post, as well as minor to small additions to see how well they've held up from this update. The first big difference I want to mention is the Molly and Incendiary change. That being how now the CT Incendiary grenade is now $500, and also now has a change of color, which this on its own really doesn't seem like much, but this combined with also the new T-side economy really does change up a lot more than you think. For an example, if you lose pistol, or lose a round you really shouldn't be losing, or you lose an eco round where you could have won it, and yet the C4 is diffused, you now get $600 instead of the original $800, which really seems to be playing a role in these early rounds. And for the first time since CSGO, eco rounds with really weird weapons actually seem normal, and also happen a lot more frequently than they have just with CS2 being out this past year. After Valve made the change from winning 16 rounds to win the game to now 13, eco rounds were still here, they just really felt non-existent, at least in my opinion, since early rounds are really important and saving was the best bet to maximize the amount of screw-ups you can have rather than playing off luck for an eco. Overall, eco rounds are back, and saving is more relevant. Playing the site and playing with your team is a lot more important nowadays than just running away post-plant and hoping the enemy team doesn't defuse the C4. So if you're playing just a casual game on Premiere, maybe face it, your communication of what you're doing on these eco rounds, especially the rounds that you're saving, are very, very important, and that of course you're working together so that C4, if you're defusing or if you're planting, stays planted or gets defused. Now, stepping away from the economy, I now want to discuss IEM Dallas, which took place a couple weeks ago and ended on June 2nd. This event isn't anywhere close to a major, it's not funded by Valve, but it gets a lot of viewers, a lot of attention, and all the best teams play there, and since we don't have a major, that being in Shanghai until later at the end of the year in December, we can get a good idea of how the game is being played from these new changes to Vertigo, and what weapons are now being used because of the economy change, but also price reductions like the M4A4 now going to $3,000. What I quickly want to mention is the M4A4 price changed to now $3,000 instead of $3,100, to where it's now the same price as the A1S. Now, it feels like this price reduction and these price changes happen all of the time, and it feels like they happened a few dozen back in CSGO, but most players still don't care aside from a select few. Now, if you can spray and pray and actually hit your shots, in my opinion, the M4A4 is superior, especially here on CS2 for whatever it is. I enjoy it a lot more, but from just a quick view at IEM Dallas, the thing was hardly used, which is not necessarily surprising since both the casual and pro scene after a major event or even small update at times, whenever something like this happens, it usually takes quite a long time for players to get adjusted. After the next couple of events and more time has passed, I'm sure all things will even out. Though at the end of the day, even if the price is higher, I believe the M4A1S will always be on top because it can hit those headshots a lot easier, more accurate, and is a lot better for the noobs to play with. Now, next up for today's video is maps. Vertigo saw some major changes just like the M4A4 adjustment. And just like how the M4A4 was the least used during the IEM Dallas, well, Vertigo was the least played after this Fire Sale update. That being at least throughout the tournament. But Premiere, it's a completely different story. In Premiere for CS2 matchmaking, whenever the slightest change of play is at hand for any sort of map, if it's official from Valve or maybe not, where it's a glitch or certain boost, players revote for that map faster than one teammate buys a scout and full nades every eco round. Vertigo seems to be going over well, but I have some of my own concerns. At the moment, it feels just a little bit too CT-sided. Now, not that it didn't before, but right now is just a little different in my eyes. If you don't have util as a T on the T side, it almost feels now impossible to take a site. Definitely a lot more than it was before. And speaking of a site, that's also now falling into mid. Now, that's not just because of this update. Vertigo is just also weird like that, but now since mid is connected to both A and B site and CT, literally directly, it feels almost just as hard on every single site, including mid. Rotates can also happen very quickly. Now, they can on both sides, but especially the CT side as well. But a question some of you guys are gonna have is what makes it so different than before? You can still peek mid right away, especially while you're holding construction if you play your cards right. You have the right people set up on certain sites, so I think rotates and balancing issues are still at play, or I guess more now at play than they were before. before. Now playing on the T side, if and when you manage to smoke off the site and get the bomb down. On A site, you have to constantly be aware of the railing where a CT can sneak through, or a T can now sneak through to CT to get an edge behind the enemy, or sometimes the entire enemy team. But I think, at least in my opinion, it actually gives some spice, that being to Vertigo. Sometimes on the CT side of Vertigo, being on A site, it felt very hard to retake, and now with 2 brand new areas opened up, in some ways it almost feels just a little bit more balanced. It might be a little bit more difficult for the Ts to take the site, but once they're there, if they play their cards right, they can hold it, and the CTs now have a lot more to work with when holding that site altogether. And since CT and both sites and middle are connected so closely together, you don't always have to have a guy playing mid, you can have a guy on A or B, just watching middle, but also playing the bomb site when it's needed. And the next segment of today's video is, of course, renting skins. With the fire sale update coming out just a little under 2 weeks ago, you could have now had the opportunity to rent skins and for them to expire once, and within the next couple of days expire twice, which you'll be then greeted with a message saying, well, your skins are disappearing, and if you want them again, either buy them from the market, unbox them, trade with somebody, or buy that exact case again, or hopefully get it from a drop and then rent all those skins. This, of course, only works for the kilowatt case, but judging by Valve's new FAQ for directly renting skins, I believe this feature will be available in every future case going forward. This has definitely been the main factor for the kilowatt case going so much up in price the last couple of weeks, that of course being because it's the only case right now available to rent, but this also leads me to more questions that Valve hasn't directly answered, especially in their recent FAQ. How is skin renting going to work going forward? What's to say that older cases won't be available to rent in the future? With every new case going forward, are they also going to have the ability to rent their skins? And if that's the case, let's just say hypothetically, next year we get 5 new cases. Are all of those 5 cases going to be available to rent until the end of time, as long as you can afford the case in the market, or are there only going to be a select few cases, or maybe one at a time, that are active duty essentially, to where you can rent them? But either way, if the ability to rent skins comes out for every new case going forward, when the case first comes out, it's going to be quite expensive for quite some time. But I don't believe the skins are really going to be expensive, at least for the beginning. Whenever that case retires, or if it does, for an example, the kilowatt case, if it's available to rent forever, those skins, even the reds, even though they look very good, they're not always going to be very expensive, because all you have to do is buy a key as long as you have the case, for maybe $1 to maybe $5. And once the ability to rent is gone, well, all those skins are going to skyrocket up in price. And over time, the quantity is going to dwindle from one, people unboxing them, but also renting the case. Because whenever you rent a case, it gets rid of the key, obviously, but also now the case just in general. And that's what I think, in my opinion, Valve wants in the end, is for you to rent, not necessarily buy and trade and have fun. Now, this feature, in my opinion, is great, and I hope to see this for gloves and knives someday. Now, the reason I mention that is because I think it makes the most amount of sense for the majority of CS players. Not everyone who plays CS is a hardcore trader, or necessarily even watches YouTube. Every CS player, and I know this from experience, but also seeing this for some of my friends, every CS player goes through phases of playing throughout the year, and it doesn't always make sense to have thousands of dollars in their account while they're AFK. And with all the big trade ban scares the last year, I also don't know if it makes a whole lot of sense either. Now, for you guys being Counter-Strike players, I don't know if you already know this, but Valve really couldn't care less about skin prices and investing, despite how much traction that drives to CS2, because if they did, they'd probably put a little bit more effort into it. At the end of the day, I think this new ability for renting skins is great, but I also think it's a start to a new way out for Valve to get out of trading and having to deal with a skin economy. But that could be a video for a different time. Let me know what you guys think about that one down below. The last thing of the fire sale update is, of course, the chicken animations. They now have a few new different animations, but I'd say most importantly, some leaked in the game files, where CS2's Twitter actually liked a post from data miners. So this is coming out, it just seems very odd. After lots of talk from the community and people breaking it down, in my opinion, this will most likely be added for Danger Zone, because based off of what's been data mined these past few months, Danger Zone is most likely the next big update Counter-Strike 2 will see, possibly in a similar format to what we've seen with these content updates so far with CS2. Let me know what you guys think down below. Was the fire sale update as good as you thought it was 2 weeks ago? And what would you like to see in the next update aside from the obvious, such as an anti-cheat? I'll catch you guys in the next one. Stay positive, stay sexy. I'm out, guys. Peace.